All right. Good morning. All right. To a man who doesn't need an introduction. All right. But for those who don't know, I'm Anthony Martino, UltimateApple2. Know the website's been down for a while. So thank you. Just to explain that. So let's go back to like 2019. I said, I got to redo the website because we were doing some of the projects. And I was just about to bring it up, and something called COVID-19 decided to come out and ruin everything. I was trying to get some boards out of China. I was trying to move forward on some projects, and all of a sudden I couldn't get anything out of China. So I had called up an old business associate. You guys know of Henry, I'm sure. And I said, Henry, are you having problems getting anything out of China? And he goes, not really. I said, you sure? Check your orders. See if anything's coming out. Sure enough, he goes, yeah, something's up. So we did our research, and literally, Apple II went on hiatus. So during that time, I still had some projects that were going, but I realized, wow, I can't get chips now. So things were becoming very difficult. In that interim, we were working on some other projects. We, as in me and my engineer here from PMA Consulting, Allison, and we were working on a bunch of little projects, and we would get to maybe like an almost production point, but then we couldn't get chips. And it happened in like 3 or 4 projects. And it was like, all right, let's just stop and we'll move on again to the next thing. So one of the things that we were working on was a mass storage card. I know there's a million of them out there now. What makes ours different? I will have him explain. But we wanted a be-all, end-all, something that covered all the bases, went in all of the Apple IIs, everything. So whatever you think, whatever you have, he'll introduce that. Also, we're going to include some speed with it, something that the others may lack, something that we haven't seen before. Some networking stuff he'll explain. Really cool stuff. So that's kind of where things are at. Yes, the website will get back up and running because we need to sell these, right? We're at this point of almost ready for production, and once they're ready, they're going to say, well, I want one. I want 2, I want 3, or however many. But we have to get the website up. So that's what we have next to do. But there is some other projects that are going to be coming after this. So it's just not this and done. And we'll be supporting this for quite a few years until we move on to the next version or what have you. Also, you may see some of my products still carried in the Reactive store. He sells my products still to today. So there wasn't that emergency to get that website up, but now there is. So without further ado, Allison, PMA Consultant.
The last K-Fest, or the first K-Fest that I came to, someone told me that I would never stick a microcontroller on an Apple II bus and do anything good with it. I love a challenge. So I set about trying to figure out what can I do with something that can not only keep up with the Apple II bus, but can shove data down its throat. Storage. There is a line of microprocessors put out by a nice French company called STMicro. They have a Cortex M7 processor called STM32 M7. And I took one of those, put it on a board, added a couple of buffers, a voltage regulator, and I made a storage controller. And I had lots and lots of room left. So what can we do with all that room? So I added Disk 2 emulation to it. Still had a lot of room left. So I added a network controller. And I still have 3/4 of the chip left. Where we're at is what's going to be called the UltimateDrive when we finally start selling it. And it does, it is a culmination of what you would get if you took the CFFA and the microdrive turbo, and you threw them in a blender, and you didn't push puree. It does DMA in machines that can support it. It knows when it can't do DMA and will fall back to polling mode if you stuck something in there that just demands to have access to the bus all the time. Found out night before last or last night that it doesn't work with a fast chip, but I'm going to work on that. Works with a transwarp in the GS. Works in an Apple II Plus. Works in an Apple II. Of course, you have to PR number 7 for that. Works in an Apple IIc with a carrier board. Works in an Apple IIc Plus with the same carrier board. It works in all Apple IIs. And I think I should show off now. Is this the right one? Yeah. Now you're making me look. Oh, because I've got the best laid plans. If you leave the SD card out, it just gets out of the way. Everybody knows Total Replay. 2E can only do about 170 kilobytes a second into and out of the thing because I have to let it do other things. So that's it in a 2E. About as fast as you can type something, it shows up. And for the 2 Plus, this is going to look bad. No, it's not. Oh, wait. You guys want to be able to see. There we go. Oh, that looks horrible. Still working on a few things. In a 2 Plus, until I finish the NMOS DMA, this is about how fast it'll run. This is polling mode. A la CFFA. Huh?
Pretty instantaneous.
Yeah, but when you type... still a little slow. But the real fun comes when you stick it in a 2GS. Now this GS only has a 1 meg 1 meg memory expansion and some other interrupt card that I've never seen before. Somebody probably knows what it is. I don't care. I want it out of my way. There's nothing in here. No accelerator, nothing. Without an accelerator, it does 290 kilobytes a second into and out of the bus. There's that polling mode again, because turn DMA back on, save it. And it's really fast. Now, I mentioned earlier Ethernet. It's not software compatible with the Ethernet 2 yet. I'm working on a compatibility layer for it. If you're using Ethernet compatibility mode, you won't be able to do disk 2 emulation at the same time because I can only occupy 2 slots. But you'll have a choice. If when we finish the Ethernet compatibility mode, it'll essentially replace your Ethernet. In UDrive Ethernet mode, though, it does something no other network controller for the Apple II has ever done, and that's DMA. So you'll be able to transfer data into your Apple II from a network at 1 megabit per second burst speed. Nobody's done that. I think the closest anyone came to that, I think there was a workstation card that was specific to the GS that did DMA, but it was half duplex and kind of janky, and as I understand it, never got finished. I never got to play with one. I would have liked to. There's already support in the beta versions of A20SX for it, for those of you who play with A20SX. There's already support. David Schmidt, told me that when he gets a chance, he's going to integrate some compatibility. I'm not making any promises for him. He could, if he decides to do it, he decides to do it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. So don't go banging on his window going, hey, what's going on? But from what I understand, David Schmidt has said that he wants to add support for it to ADT Pro. The other person that's working on this with me, we intend to make a Marionetti driver for it for the 2GS. And that's where we're at so far. Any questions? Come on.
Yeah, okay, so I have a question. When the product is released and you do release these improvements, how will the user do firmware updates?
So you're going to go to UltimateApple2.com and find the support page for the UltimateDrive. You'll download a firmware file. You'll make sure that the file name isn't changed. It'll be u7_144.bin. You'll put that in the root directory of the SD card, turn the computer on. It'll take anywhere from half a second to 3/4 of a second longer for the computer to actually come out of reset. And when it does, you'll be running the newest firmware. Any other questions? Come on.
When can I buy one?
Really, really soon if I have my way. Any other questions? Go ahead.
What's your target price?
Because of the chip shortage and STM not really producing any, I have to deal with brokers, and brokers like to make money, and they like to make money off of me, which means that I have to spend more money. If I make $15 a board, and that's not counting the $15 an hour that I consider that it's going to take for us to make them. If I sell it right now at $210, I lose money. When ST ramps back up production of the STM32 M7 and they become more available, I can bring the price back down. But for right now, it's looking like in order to not lose my mind making them, and to justify to my wife standing in the kitchen and soldering them, and to justify to Anthony having him solder up even more of them, we're looking at between $229 and $249. And I don't think that's unreasonable, but it's a price I don't really like. I wanted to bring it in under the CFFA's price.
So that's the goal, to bring it on.
What's going on?
Can you talk just a little bit about that menu system?
It's very, very, very buggy.
No problem.
The menu system allows you to turn on and off DMA, turn on and off smart port support so that it'll actually boot in an Apple II Plus or an unenhanced 2E. It allows you to turn on, there's a setting in there that says 8FF fix. There are people who have ROM 3 Apple II GSs that have had the battery die, and once the battery's died, for some reason there's one setting in the PRAM that never gets put back the way it wants to be, and when you boot it, if you hold it in reset while you're booting it, it will throw an 8FF error. And then when it doesn't throw that error, it'll give you a 911 error. What it does is it releases reset for 145 milliseconds, then re-engages reset and releases reset, which makes it so you don't see the 8FF or 911 errors. Any other questions?
Apple III support?
Same guy, David Schmidt and I discussed it. He and someone else are going to work on an Apple III driver. The menu will be a loadable file. So you'll have access to it in an Apple III, and because of how small it is, it's going to look really tiny in there.
Can you show it to us?
Yes, I can. Let me make sure I turn it off first.
What about WAS support?
WAS support is already skeleton on the table, and I have a testing firmware for it, but I didn't bring it with me. So here's UltimateDrive. I know it's hard to see. It's like a postage stamp across the room, right? But the amazing thing is that we were able to accomplish all of that, and this thing averages 7 milliamps from the Apple II bus. It gives you absolutely no power draw at all. It's like 20 microamps when it's idle. So when it's not transferring data into and out of the Apple II's bus, it's asleep. And when it's sleeping, it doesn't pull any power. When there's a network module plugged in, the network module pulls 188 milliamps. So that plus this transferring data without any data going into or out of the network, it'll pull a max of 88 plus 188, that's 260, 270 milliamps. If you're transferring data over the network, the power draw goes up by another 55 milliamps. So the max draw on this is just shy of 320 milliamps. But the average draw on it is really nothing. It's less than 30 milliamps. Any other questions?
So is the networking module like a daughter board? Or
Yeah, it plugs into here. And
that'll have the Ethernet jack?
it'll have an Ethernet jack on it. And you can either buy them from us, or if you don't want to spend money with us, then you can buy them on Amazon. They come two for $17, or if you buy them 10 at a time, you can get them for 80 bucks.
Oh, so it's just a standard piece.
It's a standard piece. It's a W5500 module that will tell you which one that we
How does the width work out with adjacent slot? With the network?
If you put it in slot 7 in a 2GS, there is very little room between it and the 1.5 meg board. It doesn't touch, but it almost does.
And that's with the network module?
That's with the network module. Without the network module, you could put your mail in there.
Yeah. And is it slot dependent in any way?
No. You could stick it in slot 1 and tell it to watch slot 5 for disk 2, or you could stick it in slot 2 and put the Ethernet module, which you'll go into menu and say disk 2 in there, but as soon as it sees that there's a network module and you've also got Ethernet emulation turned on, then it will turn off disk 2 support, and then that slot will actually be will watch whatever slot you told it to do disk 2. So you could stick this in slot 2 and watch slot 4 for Ethernet. There's a GAL that's not present on this board because China doesn't seem to be able to find any, and you can't get them on DigiKey, Mauser, Jameco, nowhere. It's a particular speed of GAL that's necessary for it. I've got a line on 11,000 of them, but they want me to buy all of them. And I said, no, thank you. Not for $8. Huh? No, and you know, no matter how many times I get on a motorcycle, no dollar bills fly out. That one Geico commercial has got me so confused. And
Ship for $8 sounds like a big deal.
no, each. Each. Any other questions? Go ahead.
You have a mailing list or anything for, how many people want to buy them?
That's something that I think Anthony's going to have to set up.
I
And
get the website, I'll tell you something interesting.
there are the first shipment of these. There's actually about 5 of them that have been dedicated to people that have helped, and 2 of them are going to people that if it weren't for them, then I wouldn't be here today. After that, I think we're going to open it up, but it's probably going to be anywhere between 2 weeks. I wanted to do 11 days, but I'm still having a hard time finding the gals. I was intending to go to market in 11 days with this, but like I said, I'm having a hard time finding gals. I can get these STM32 chips all day long at 3 times the price. And go ahead.
So the DMA mode for network access, will that be, you see the speed up in Ethernet 2 mode, or do you have to wait?
No, you won't see. You'll have to wait for either a Marionetti or something that supports the UltimateDrive's network module.
And then just for the smart ports, you said what kind of floppy drive compatibility will this have?
It does not pretend. Okay, so there's not going to be WAS support for 800K images, not out of the gate. Later, maybe it's on the to-do list, but you don't have to worry about it. If it gets added to the capabilities, then you'll be able to download a firmware file off of our website and install it on the card. Out of the gate, it does up to 2 gigabyte hard disk images, and it does 32 megabyte images. It'll do up to 12 of them in a computer that supports SmartPort. And if you force it, you can actually get an Apple II Plus to see all 8, as long as the version of ProDOS that you're using doesn't have any 65 CO2 code in it. The disk image support is still being finalized. It works. We've proved it works. The WAS support is, once you've got disk support, then supporting WAS is easier, because I just got less math to do and shove some bits. So that's penned in for the next 2 months. The network support is going to be done probably a month or 2 after we start selling the boards, and you'll know when networking support is working, because we'll have the modules on the website. Any other questions?
When you Ethernet support, you have to slot 3.
Whatever slot you want to tell it the disk 2 watcher to listen for. There's one menu setting that says it's going to say alt card. So you'll have 2 choices. You can either do disk 2 or network functionality. If the network functionality will work in slot 7 if it's in slot 7 if you're doing if you're doing UltimateDrive network. The Othernet emulation, in order to emulate an Othernet, I have to create a separate set of registers that are in a new place. And I have to look at that as if I were completely different set of registers. And I have to map them exactly the way they are on the Othernet, so that when something goes to talk to it as an Othernet, it doesn't give a response back that doesn't make any sense.
With those work, you have to slot 3.
You can put them in whatever slot you want, as long as it's not an occupied slot. It'll work in whatever slot you want. Any other questions?
That knows how it works in 2C.
Hit the crux. So there is a proof of concept sitting on my desk at home. It works. It's janky, but it works. I've got a couple of bugs to work out. Once those bugs are worked out, there'll be 2 cables and a board that this plugs into, and it'll allow this to operate in a 2C. It'll also allow this.
You're giving a 2C a slot.
Giving a 2C.
So you get 2 products coming out.
Correct. It'll give the 2C a slot that only works with this. It'll only work with this, James. It'll require a ROM change. The good news is the ROM will come with it, and when you take your ROM out and plug the second cable into it, your job is done. It just has to be set up with the jumpers for 32K images, and it'll work. It's going to have most of the functionality of the ROM 4X, because the base is the ROM 4X, and you'll be able to download the sources for it and build your own ROM. We will not supply you with that ROM unless you give us an image, and we can then put that image in an EEPROM and put it on your board. Until another project that is on the table is finished, that's the best we can do because of legal reasons. But it will work in a 2C, a 2C plus. It'll work in if you stick this in the side of a Laser 128, it just works. If you stick this in the number 5 slot hanging out of the expansion adapter that hangs out of a 2C, it doesn't work. But if you stick it in the 7, it does. Tested. Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, the incompatibility right now with the fast chip 2E, what's the source of that, do you know?
I think it's because I hold ready low longer than it wants me to, while the 2 is starting up, and I can probably resolve that with a firmware update. Any other questions?
Have you tried it with an apple squeezer on the GS?
It will work in an apple squeezer in all of the circumstances that it will work in all of the circumstances that a Ramfast will work in an apple squeezer in DMA mode. In polling mode, it'll just work because as far as the apple squeezer is concerned, it's just a card. Anything? Oh, Buggy.
You mentioned earlier that there is some thing where you put a video ROM in it. Does that?
When did I say that?
What?
Huh? When?
Oh, darn, let's see, I don't know, 5 minutes ago?
No.
Something, well, there was some kind of change in ROM.
No, if you put a firmware file on here and you stick it in here, and then you stick it in your Apple II and turn it on, it'll take about up to 750 milliseconds, 3/4 of a second for your computer to come out of reset. When it does, it's flash, but we don't do anything with video.
Oh.
Sorry, Buggy. Who else? Come on.
So with the network wireless capability,
Only so far on the drawing board. We have a W5500 network adapter already mapped out. My plan is to make a Wi-Fi adapter for it, but I don't think it's going to work very well in any other two but the 2C. Unfortunately, Apple IIs are shielded. And Apple IIs being shielded means if you stick Wi-Fi inside of them, you burn up Wi-Fi chips and you get no reception. And I don't like disappointing people. I don't want to give any false hopes. The good news is in a 2C, there is a gap along the side in all of the 2Cs except the original one, go figure, where the RF insulation has a place to escape. So it works in there, and I know that from the PiJet, but that's a conversation for another day.
so, but my question was more, so if you have network capability,
Uh-huh.
are there any thoughts into providing like a web interface so you get
That's up to you guys. That's up to you guys.
to move the files to the SD card from the web, from the internet, from the
You mean with open a web browser and push files? FTP would be easier, but that would be up to you guys. And I'm open to answering questions. I'm open to additional features being added later if I can get some members on the team that are trustworthy, that I can give them free roam and terror on the code and let them play with it. But the plan is to sell these for a little while, and then once we're done selling them, we're giving the design files for this, we're giving the source code to this, we're giving everything associated with this when sales start to slow down to you guys. And you'll be able to do whatever you want with it. If you decide, you know, it's a shame that nobody's making those and you want to go order the chips, you can make your own. Not right now, but when sales have slowed down on that or we've moved on to another project, this belongs to the Apple II community. As far as Ultimate Apple II is concerned, this is yours. This is yours to do with what you please. To that vein, if you reach out to us on UltimateApple2.com and you give a suggestion what we should do with this board, we will tell you as soon as we can if that's a possibility. And if it is, we'll let you know as soon as that possibility has been met. I've got 2 megabytes of storage on this chip. I've used 63K of it. Okay? Huh? No. Screw the SD card. I put this over here. There's flash storage on here where the software runs. And that software, I'm using 63K of 2 meg. Okay? I'm just barely touching what we could do with this in the future. And this may not be the final version. I'm not trying to get you to not buy one, because whatever happens with this, This is hopefully going to be the gold standard for the next 5-10 years. I'm hoping that with you guys' help, you tell me what you want, and we'll make this the go-to storage device, the ultimate drive for your Apple II.
And you can update it by firmware.
And you can update the firmware off our website. And if we can't get this chip anymore, and we have to move to another chip, I'll make firmware that works with this and the new device. You download one file, as long as that file there'll be a date on the board, the revision date on the board when you buy a board. As long as the firmware that you download is from after that date, it will work with your UltimateDrive. Any other questions?
Can it make me coffee in the morning?
Not yet. But it is planned. I'm kidding. Anybody else?
What exactly, again, on the 2C do you have to pull out?
The CPU and the CPU and the ROM.
Yeah, because I saw your demo. You showed that to me.
The CPU and the ROM. Anybody else?
Can you explain that last question?
Okay, so the 2C doesn't have any slots. This requires a slot. So in order for this to work in a 2C, I've got to either supply a slot or make a new device for the 2C. I don't like making multiple devices. He does not like making multiple devices that serve the same purpose. He wants to have one ring to rule them all. Apple II forever can't happen if there's Apple II this, Apple II that, Apple II this, and everybody gets confused. Well, which UltimateDrive do I have? Do I have the Super Supreme one, or do I have the yellow and purple one? We want you to be able to buy an UltimateDrive and know that when you buy an UltimateDrive, you're buying an UltimateDrive.
So the meaning of the last question was to do with the way you
Interface it to a 2C.
The way you get a dedicated slot outside the box.
No, it'll go inside. It'll clip to the bottom of your keyboard and it'll stay inside of your Apple IIc.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So it's incompatible with Applied Engineering's Z drive.
No, it'll work with the Z drive.
Well, will they occupy the same
Huh?
space?
They won't occupy the same space, but it'll work. If like the Mockingbird 4C will work with this. The Z drive will work with this.
You know, the Z drive, you're stacking them.
Yeah, well, kinda. You're plugging one into the other and then hoping that you can make it stay somewhere without
Without the keyboard going.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll probably somebody's probably going to make a 3D printable new bracket for the bottom of the keyboard that will hold more or do more. But with those cables, you can move the CPU signals away from where they are and plug whatever you want into it. And with the first thing that we were planning on doing for the 2C, that was how we targeted it, was it plugged into the CPU socket, replaced the CPU, and did this and a whole bunch of other things, but we can't get parts. Anybody else?
So do you envision, like, following the network question, that it could do more than the storage, like drive is an emphasis on storage, such as emulate a printer?
No, for that you're going to want to get a FujiNet, unfortunately, for now. I mean,
like being an ultimate, could it potentially also assume wider roles?
well, if you're hooked up to the network, I suppose you could do PDF print if we could figure out how to make that work. But yeah, you're just essentially shoving, pushing a PDF out with a different header out onto the file on port 9100. Anybody else? I'm done.
Thank you.